Early life, Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill. I was born to an aristocratic family on November 30, 1874. As my life unfolded, I displayed the traits of my father, Lord Randolph Churchill, a British statesman from an established English family, and my mother, Jenny Jerome, an independent-minded New York socialite. As a young child, I grew up in Dublin, Ireland, where my father was employed by my grandfather, the 7th Duke of Marlborough, John Spencer Churchill. When I entered formal school, I proved to be an independent and rebellious student. I did poorly at my first two schools, and in April 1888, I was sent to Harrow School, a boarding school near London. Within weeks of my enrollment, I joined the Harrow Rifle Corps, which put me up a path to a military career. At first, it didn't seem the military was a good choice for me. It took me three tries to pass the exam for the British Royal Military College. However, I did well and graduated 20th in my class of 130. Up to this time, my relationship with both my mother and father was distant, though I adored them both. While at school, I wrote emotional letters to my mother, begging her to come see me, but she seldom came. My father died when I was 21, and it was sad that I knew him more by reputation. In World War II, though not at first seeing the threat that Adolf Hitler posed when I rose to power in 1933, I gradually became a leading advocate for British rearmament. By 1938, as Germany began controlling its neighbors, I had become a staunch critic of British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain's policy of appeasement toward the Nazis. On September 3, 1939, the day that Britain declared war on Germany, I was appointed First Lord of the Admiralty and a member of the War Cabinet, and by April 1940, I became chairman of the Military Coordinating Committee. Later that month, Germany invaded and occupied Norway, which was set back for Neville Chamberlain, who had resisted my proposal that Britain preempt German aggression by unilaterally occupying vital Norwegian iron mines and seaports. In May, debate in Parliament on the Norwegian crisis led to a vote of no confidence toward Prime Minister Chamberlain. On May 10, King George VI appointed me as Prime Minister and Minister of Defense within ours. The German army began its Western offensive, invading the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg. 2 days later, German forces entered France, but Britain stood alone against the onslaught. Quickly, I formed a coalition cabinet of leaders from the Labour, Liberal, and Conservative parties. I placed intelligent and talented men in key positions. On June 18, 1940, I made of my iconic speeches to the House of Commons, warning that the Battle of Britain was about to begin. I kept resistance to Nazi dominance alive and created the foundation for an alliance with the United States and the Soviet Union. I had previously cultivated a relationship with U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt in the 1930s, and by March 1941 was able to secure vital U.S. aid through the Lend-Lease Act, which allowed Britain to order war goods from the United States on credit. After the United States entered World War II in December 1941, I was confident that the Allies would eventually win the war. In the months that followed, I worked closely with U.S. President Roosevelt and Soviet Union leader Joseph Stalin to forge an Allied war strategy in post-war world. In meetings in Tehran 1943, Yalta February 1945, and Potsdam July 1945, I collaborated with the two leaders to develop a united strategy against the Axis powers and help craft the post-war world with the United Nations as its centerpiece. As the war wound down, I proposed plans for social reforms in Britain, but was unable to convince the public. Perhaps, seeing myself as a wartime Prime Minister, I was defeated in the general election in July 1945. During the next 6 years, I became the leader of the opposition party and continued to have an impact on world affairs. In March 1946, while on a visit to the U.S., I made my famous Iron Curtain speech, warning of Soviet domination in Eastern Europe. I also advocated that Britain remain independent from European coalition and maintain its independence. After the general election of 1951, I returned to government. I was appointed Minister of Defense between October 1951 and January 1952. I became Prime Minister in October 1951. In 1953, I was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II. I introduced various reforms such as the Mines and Quarries Act of 1954 and the Housing Repairs and Rent Act of 1955. These domestic reforms were overshadowed by a series of foreign policy crises in the colonies of Kenya and Malaya, where I ordered direct military action. While successful in my last years before my death, I had shown signs of fragile health as early as 1941 while visiting the White House. At that time, I suffered a mild heart attack, and in 1943, I had a similar attack while battling a bout of pneumonia. In June 1953, at age 78, I suffered from a series of strokes at my office. The news was kept from the public and Parliament, with official announcements stating that I had suffered from exhaustion. I recuperated at home and returned to my work as Prime Minister in October. However, it was apparent even to me that I was physically and mentally slowing down. I retired as Prime Minister in 1955. I remained a Member of Parliament until the general election of 1964. When I did not seek re-election. There was a speculation that I suffered from Alzheimer's disease in my last years, but many medical experts feel that my reduced mental capacity was more a result of the stroke I had suffered. Despite my poor health, I was able to remain active in public life. On January 15, 1965, I suffered a severe stroke that left myself gravely ill. I died at my London home 9 days later. At age 90 on January 24, 1965, retained my early careers, government and military. In 19th century, I became a member of parliament in the Conservative Party for Oldham, a town in Manchester. Following my father into politics, I also followed my father's stance of independence, becoming a supporter of social reform. Unconvinced that the Conservative Party was committed to social justice, I switched to the Liberal Party in 1904. I was elected a member of Parliament and in 1908 and was appointed to the Prime Minister's Cabinet as President of the Board of Trade. That same year, I married Clementine Ogilvie Boudia after a short courtship. As President of the Board of Trade, I joined newly appointed Chancellor Lloyd George in opposing the expansion of the British Navy. Also in 1908, I introduced several reforms for the prison system, introduced the first minimum wage, and helped set up labor exchanges for the unemployment and unemployment insurance. I assisted in the passing of the People's Budget, which introduced new taxes on the wealthy to pay for new social welfare programs. The budget passed the House of Commons in 1909, but was initially defeated in the House of Lords before being passed in 1910. I also drafted a controversial piece of legislation to amend the Mental Deficiency Act of 1913, mandating sterilization of the feeble-minded. The bill eventually passed both houses with only the remedy of confinement in institutions. In January 1911, I showed my tougher side when I made a controversial visit to a police siege in London. Police had surrounded a house where two robbers had been caught. My degree of participation is still in some dispute. Some accounts had me going to the scene only to see for myself what was going on. Others state that I allegedly gave directions to police on how to best storm the dignity. What is known is that the house caught fire during the siege, and I prevented the fire brigade from extinguishing the flames, stating that I thought it better to let the house burn down, rather than risk lives rescuing the occupants. The bodies of the two robbers were found inside the charred ruins. While serving as First Lord of the Admiralty since 1911, I helped modernize the British Navy, ordering that new warships be built with oil-fired instead of coal-fired engines. I was one of the first to promote military aircraft and set up the Royal Navy Air Service. So enthusiastic was I about aviation that I took flying lessons to understand firsthand its military potential. Though not directly involved in the disastrous Battle of Gallipoli, I resigned as post because I felt responsible for proposing the expedition. For a brief period, I rejoined the British Army commanding a battalion of the Royal Scots Fusiliers on the Western Front and seeing action in no man's land. In 1917, I was appointed Minister of Munitions for the final year of the war, overseeing the production of tanks, airplanes, and ammunition. From 1919 to 1922, I served as a Minister of War and Air and Colonial Secretary under Prime Minister David Lloyd George. As Colonial Secretary, I was embroiled in another controversy when I ordered air power be used on rebellious Kurdish tribesmen in Iraq, a British colony. At one point, I suggested that poisonous gas be used to put down the rebellion. This proposal was considered but never enacted, though the conventional bombing campaign was and failed to end the resistance. Fractures in the Liberal Party led to the defeat of me as a Member of Parliament in 1922, and I rejoined the Conservative Party. I served as Chancellor of the Exchequer, returning Britain to the gold standard, and took a hard line against a general labor strike that threatened to cripple the British economy. With the defeat of the Conservative government in 1929, I was out of government. I was perceived as a right-wing extremist who was out of touch with the people. I spent the next few years concentrating. First speech as Prime Minister to House of Commons on May 10, 1940. Winston Churchill became Prime Minister when he met his cabinet on May 13. He told them, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat." He repeated that phrase later in the day when he asked the House of Commons for a vote of confidence in his new all-party government. The response of Labour was heartwarming. The Conservative reaction was lukewarm. They still really wanted hope, but Churchill commented on the General Ismay, poor people, they trust me, and I can give them nothing but disaster for quite a long time." I beg to move that this House welcomes the formation of a government representing the united and inflexible resolve of the nation to prosecute the war with Germany to a victorious conclusion. On Friday evening last, I received His Majesty's commission to form a new administration. It is the evident wish and will of Parliament and the nation that this should be conceived on the broadest possible basis, and that it should include all parties, both those who supported the late government and also the parties of the opposition. I have considered the most important part of this task. A war cabinet has been formed of 5 members, representing with the opposition Liberals, the unity of the nation. The 3 party leaders have agreed to serve, either in the war cabinet or in high executive office. The 3 party services have been filled. It was necessary that this should be done in one single day. On account of the extreme urgency and vigor of events, a number of other positions, key positions, were filled yesterday, and I am submitting a further list to His Majesty tonight. I hope to complete the appointment of the principal ministers during tomorrow. The appointment of the other ministers usually takes a little longer, but I trust that when Parliament meets again, this part of my task will be completed, and that the administration will be complete in all respects. I consider it in the public interest to suggest that the House should be summoned to meet today. Mr. Speakers agreed and took the necessary steps in accordance with the powers conferred upon him by the resolution of the House. At the end of the proceedings today, the adjournment of the House will be proposed until Tuesday, May 21st, with, of course, provision for earlier meeting if need be. The business to be considered during their week will be notified to members at the earliest opportunity. I now invite the House, with the motion which stands in my name, to refer the seal approval of the steps taken and to declare its confidence in the new government. The form and administration of this scale and complexity as a serious undertaking in itself. But it must be remembered that we are in the preliminary stage of one of the greatest battles in history. That we are in action at many other points in Norway and in Holland. So we have to be prepared in the Mediterranean. That our air battles continuous and that many preparations, such as have been indicated by my home. Friend below the gangway have to be made here at home. In this crisis, I hope I may be pardoned if I do not address the House at any length today. I hope that any of my friends and colleagues, or former colleagues, who are affected by the political reconstruction will make allowance. All allowance for any lack of ceremony with which it has been necessary to act. I would say to the House, as I said to those who have joined the government, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and of suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I can say, it is to wage war by sea, land, and air, with all our might and with all the strength that God can give us. To wage war against a monstrous tyranny, never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. It is victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory, however long and hard the road may be. For without victory, there is no survival. Let that be realized. No survival for the British Empire. No survival for all that the British Empire has stood for. No survival for the urge and impulse of the ages, that mankind will move forward towards its goal. But I take up my task with buoyancy and hope. I feel sure that our cause will not be suffered to fail among men. At this time, I feel entitled to claim the aid of all. And I say, come then, let us go forward together with